Hey everyone, Logan Hertz with Hazeltine LLC, back again. I think this is part six of our response to this infinite banking hit piece. I have with me again Peter Nelson. Peter, how you doing?
Living the dream, Logan. Living the dream.
So we actually got a response from Mr. Wealthy Accountant. He had removed some of my comments that I had posted, showing, hey, as an example, I said, hey, Chris and I and Peter and I made a response to your article. Here's a link to that. I corrected nuance just one or two comments he had made and said, hey, we would like to have a discussion with you. And he removed all those comments. So none of them are visible. And then I went and submitted something through the contact us form, and we actually got a response from Mr. Wealthy Accountant. So I will open that up. Let's just go through this. And let's see how Mr. Wealthy Accountant responded. So just as a reminder, this is what I sent him. I just said, hi, Chris Kirkpatrick and myself would like to discuss your infinite banking article in a public forum in order to better educate the public. Chris is obviously the author of the video in question in your article, and I am also a proponent of the infinite banking concept, although Chris is not a proponent of infinite banking, merely a proponent of whole life insurance. And then I just gave him my link so he could schedule time with us. And we did actually get a response. So here is his response. Logan, thank you for the offer. Unfortunately, I have to take a pass. Oftentimes, I get similar requests when publishing. I write for other publications in my field as well. Articles in these specialized publications are frequently at the level of substantial authority, meaning they take substantial amounts of time to research and can be used in the federal court system and tax court. As a result, time restraints from current obligations do not allow for more projects. The biggest issue is preparation. The discussion would involve subchapter L of the code, and it would be best to also have an attorney specializing in life insurance in the forum as well. I would also need to see the policies we would discuss to narrow the discussion. This all would take more time than available. Again, thank you for the offer. I wish you the best in finding a qualified candidate for your public forum. And that was a real struggle for me to read that with a straight face. That was a real struggle to read that without laughing. But Peter, I have a few things to say, but your initial thoughts on he's not open for a public discussion. Your
Well, I
thoughts
mean,
on this response?
I kind of expected this. I think when you come out and say some of the stuff that he did, and then you get invited to a public forum and you don't do it, my only recommendation would be um, um, then don't put stuff like that out. Okay. That's all my recommendation is. Don't put stuff out like that and then not be willing to go. It's like Dave Ramsey throws this crazy, I'm not even going to use the word, but crazy stuff out there. And then do you think he has competent someone on the other side to actually discuss it? No. And, and it's not it's not professional. That's not what professionals do. That's not what Thomas Aquinas would the way he would recommend it. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend to this gentleman to read Thomas Aquinas, and maybe he would change his thought process a little bit, actually.
Peter, don't throw your pearls before swine. I don't think this guy should be reading St. Thomas. I think it would just be way over his head. Um, but yeah, St. Thomas Aquinas would always do the steel man argument as opposed to the straw man argument. So when St. Thomas
Right.
Aquinas would represent his opponent's positions, he would represent them properly and in the best possible light, right? So setting up the strongest possible case before he then argues against it. He would not set up caricatures of the other side and then take them down. And he certainly wouldn't not take the time to research it, right? Like he would take the time to actually become an expert before he would write anything, in the field of philosophy or theology or what have you, right? Okay, so this whole response is just him posturing about how important he is. I mean, it's hard for me not to laugh. This is how you know someone is intellectually bankrupt when they have to, basically brag about all this big important stuff they got going on. Articles in these specialized publications are frequently at the level of substantial authority, right? um, and then he says the discussion would involve subchapter L of the code. See, that's supposed to impress you, Peter, because you don't know what subchapter L of the code is, but he does, right? It's funny, he didn't seem to have an issue with preparation or subchapter L of the code or involving an attorney to write the article. So apparently all this stuff is only necessary when responding to somebody else. But apparently he can just write the article off the top of his head. He doesn't have to consult an attorney. He doesn't have to do any preparation. He doesn't have to look at subject or L of the code. He doesn't have to look at policies. No, right? He'll just throw it up there. But it's only when someone responds, then all of a sudden all this preparation becomes necessary. He couldn't possibly make the time for it, right?
Right. Do you think attorney was involved when he wrote that article?
I sure hope not. I sure hope not.
Maybe it was the attorney. What was his name? The guy that's in jail now, that attorney. No, related to Trump and all that. I forget his name. Anyways.
Right. And at the level of substantial authority, see, he's just way too important, right? And it's like, look, whether that's true or not is a problem. So if you are just doing what I think you're doing, which is bragging, right? And trying to obfuscate and throw out all these credentials, right? Because when someone starts putting up their credentials, what they're saying is, I don't have an actual argument and I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to hide behind credentials, years of experience, and try and intimidate you with technical jargon that you don't know, like subchapter L of the code, right? Um, but let's assume that this is correct, that he's this substantial authority figure. He's very well known and renowned, and everything he writes is taken seriously. Well, then it's incumbent upon you to be responsible about how you use that authority and not to publish hack piece hit jobs,
Yeah.
right, on something that you don't know anything about. Like Warren Buffett is not going to start shilling for a stock because he knows everyone will take what he says seriously. And he's going to be careful what he says because he knows he can move the market. If he says, I think this stock is amazing and everyone should buy it, then a lot of people are going to act on that advice. So he's careful with what he says, right?
Yeah.
So if this guy is a substantial authority figure, then it's incredibly unprofessional and quite frankly unethical for him to be publishing an article on a subject he knows nothing about that is going to sway people, right?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly, as I started off saying, I think this is incredibly unprofessional. If you're going to do a hit piece like this and then not be willing to defend it in the public forum, I'm sorry, but you are highly unprofessional. And and I don't want to throw names and accuse, I don't know this person, but it is unprofessional to do that. Just like
Yeah, yeah. We don't
Ken Fisher is highly unprofessional. Dave Ramsey is highly unprofessional. And you would think um if you specialize in publications at the level of substantial authority, we would all hope that you'd be professional. I
Right.
mean,
We can absolutely, we can and we must make judgments on people's external behavior. That doesn't mean we pass judgments on the people themselves, but there's no question that this guy's article is totally unprofessional from start to finish. He says infinite banking's rate of return sucks. He effectively calls life insurance a bunch of little greedy Shylocks chasing after a commission, right? I mean, all
wait,
throughout the article, there's all these insinuations that life insurance agents are evil and that kind of a thing, right?
could you imagine Thomas Aquinas doing this once going back? But I mean, that's kind of the gold standard. And
Mhm.
if we had to compare Aquinas to this, it's like you don't have to be Aquinas. Not many people ever were, but
Right, right.
you're the opposite, right? I mean, come on, please.
Yeah, it's not only unprofessional, it's unethical, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much of a stretch for me to say that articles like the one he published will harm widows and orphans. It will cause real financial, emotional harm to people because they will no longer have the permanent death benefit protection that they
And
need.
and once again, okay, we're talking about accountants here, right?
Mhm.
Ernst and Young, if anyone out there is listening, if you haven't gotten a hold of the Ernst and Young report, please reach out to us. We will provide you a copy of it. Ernst and Young did a report. They were one of the top 10 largest accounting firms on this planet. I'm I'm pretty sure they have a higher authority out there or knowledge base than the wealthy accountant. And they say the opposite. They say you must integrate cash value life insurance into your portfolio in order to maximize retirement income and legacy at the same time. So wait, the wealthy accountant is now more brilliant than one of the top 10 largest accounting firms on the planet? Seriously?
Yeah, Peter, according to him, that's just a bunch of life insurance agents chasing a commission.
Right. How many commissions is Ernst & Young getting paid to
Right,
publish that, right?
right.
Wow.
And he also says, I would also need to see the policies we would discuss. Once again, showing he doesn't understand the infinite banking concept. We're not discussing any policies. We're discussing a concept. Okay. So policies would be irrelevant, right? That would be a distraction, right? Now we could go to a policy when we're looking at an implementation of the infinite banking concept. But again, it's just an excuse as to why he couldn't possibly make the time because he's way too important for us. And again, it's hypocrisy, right? Because apparently none of this preparation was necessary for him to publish the article in the first place, right? If you're saying it requires a substantial amount of time to prepare and you need to consult an attorney and look at subchapter L of the code, then you know what? You should do that before you publish the article, not use it as an excuse. So apparently, none of this preparation is necessary. He can just publish this hit piece, right, based on 30 seconds of research and watching a YouTube video, right? It's only when the actual experts call him out on it, then all of a sudden he needs all this time to prepare and he's got all this technical jargon to bury you with, right? To make you think he knows what he's talking about, right?
Right. He can produce a video of Chris Kirkpatrick, but then he's not willing to actually stand there and debate the person that he's actually pulling the video of. Come on.
Right. You want
Once
to talk about,
again,
yeah,
I don't want to
unprofessional.
throw stones. I'm just going to call out and say this is not what professional gentlemen do at this level.
Right. If you're going to call someone out, Chris Kirkpatrick, which he did because he posted Chris Kirkpatrick's video on his article, and then Chris Kirkpatrick responds and challenges you to a public debate, and you're only responding because I reached out to him, and you're not going to do it. Well, that is unprofessional behavior. If you're going to attack someone publicly, then you should give them the opportunity to defend themselves. Right?
Yeah, then
That's just normal human behavior, right?
yeah, if you're not gonna go to the public forum after you're being called out, then just don't publish stuff like this. It's very,
Right.
very basic.
Right.
Because
Right.
as you
Right.
said, unfortunately, he is harming people's future, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Yep.
Potentially.
Yep. And then I love the faux professionalism, right? There's so much fake professionalism here, right? He's throwing out this like, "Oh, I would need preparation. I need to hire an attorney and all that." Okay, but apparently you didn't need that to publish the article. And then he says, "Again, thank you for the offer, right? I wish you the best in finding a qualified candidate for your public forum." Like, wait a minute. When did I say I was looking for a qualified candidate? I'm making it pretty clear that you, Mr. Wealthy Accountant, are not a qualified candidate. You are clueless when it comes to the infinite banking and even some of the most basic understanding of whole life insurance mechanics. If I want a qualified candidate, you know what? I have one when I look in the mirror. Like I have a lot of colleagues who do infinite banking. Any number of them would be far better than you if I was looking for a qualified candidate. Right? He's deliberately, I don't know if he's either he's obtuse or he's didn't read what I said or he's deliberately misinterpreting. Obviously, what I'm saying is not, oh, I'm looking for a qualified, expert on infinite banking. And so, of course, I go to the wealthy accountant because he's always the first person that I think of, right? It's like, no, obviously, Chris Kirkpatrick and I are responding because you directly attacked Chris Kirkpatrick and you directly attacked infinite banking. And we would like to debate this with you in a public forum, right? So people are not misled by your ignorant article. Right? So no, I'm not looking for a qualified candidate. If I were looking for a qualified candidate, you would not be on the list.
Right.
Uh, but see, Peter, you don't know what subchapter L of the code is. Therefore, you're ignorant. Right?
Is he referring to 7702?
I have no idea. I didn't even look. Like, why I could Google it, I'm sure, but why do I care? Right? It's clearly just obfuscating. That's all he's doing is obfuscating and trying to posture. Right? So, what I would say to you is this, Peter. and this is not unique to me, but a lack of professionalism is a bad thing. But you know what's worse? The
Hmm.
pretense of professionalism, which is what we have here. It's faux professionalism, right? It's faux professionalism. That's what this is. Okay, so then I lost my temper a little bit, I'll admit. And so I responded and I said, "Thanks for your reply, Keith. If you're unwilling to take the time to prepare, perhaps you shouldn't be publishing articles on a subject on which you are self admittedly not an expert. The advice you're publishing does substantial and very real damage to widows and orphans. If you don't want to discuss, that's fine. Then please remove your harmful article and stick to your area of expertise." I think that's a pretty fair response, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to publish the article, first of all, you're saying all this preparation is needed. Okay, then if you're not willing to do the preparation, don't publish the article. Simple as that. I've spent a lot of time researching and learning about infinite banking before I ever got into the business, right? You know, so I don't publish articles, and especially now that have I now have a public forum and I now have some authority with what I say. I am probably more careful about what I say than what I would have done before. Because when I was just a layman, nobody cares what I say, so I can run my mouth and it's not a big deal because nobody confuses me with a qualified expert. But now that I am, right, when people ask me about investments or tax law or things that are not in my wheelhouse, I'm always very careful with what I say. And I'm always going to first say, well, I'm not really an expert in that, right? I might give you my personal opinion, but I'll make it clear that this is just my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he responded with his usual projection. "Logan, your response makes clear you are not interested in education. Your confrontational response and unprofessional reply makes it clear a public discussion would be of no value to either of us, most of all the viewers." Okay. So once again, it's always interesting when they call you names, right, Peter? Because it's always projection. The specific names they call you always reveal a lot about the author of those insults, right? So he's confrontational and unprofessional. Hmm. Peter, if you were to go reread his article, wouldn't you describe it as being a little bit confrontational and unprofessional? It's
That's it.
confrontational in that he pretty much insinuates that us life insurance agents who do infinite banking are basically evil. We're just greedy, chasing after a commission, and we're just taking advantage of people, right? That insinuation is all throughout the article. He says things like infinite banking rate of return sucks. Well, that's
Yeah.
unprofessional. His
Well,
grammar throughout the piece is terrible. That's unprofessional, right? He uses all caps at one point. That's unprofessional, right? And of course, his response here is totally unprofessional.
yeah. And I have 23 years experience. I was a licensed life insurance salesman and worked with 3 life insurance companies. And then writing this article, do you know what it sounds like to me? Somebody peed in his Cheerios and he's trying to get back.
Yeah, so Peter was reading the rest of it. Yeah. FTR, I have 23 years experience, 1998 to 2021. Okay, stop right there. Again, whenever someone falls back on their experience or their credentials, you know they're intellectually bankrupt. If you have a good idea, just share the good idea. If you have a good argument, make the argument. You don't have to couch it as, well, I'm a Harvard PhD or I'm the expert, right? That's what people do when they don't have an actually good idea and they don't have an actual argument, right? The way the elites are always trying to lecture us, well, I'm a Harvard PhD, so therefore you should listen to what I have to say, right? Well, Harvard PhDs have been wrong about plenty of things. Just because you have a Harvard PhD doesn't entitle you to lecture everybody, right? So
By the way, how are the Ivy League campuses looking these days?
yeah, it reminds me of, I'll go into a little bit of a rabbit hole on my, when I started my career in strategy consulting, very first project I had been on, um, the the project manager on that project was a Harvard MBA, really smart guy, and never once did he bring that up when he's talking to the client. Like he never told the client, "Well, I've got a Harvard MBA and I've got this many years of experience." If he did that, the client would have laughed at him. Like, I don't care. Okay, good. I'm glad you have that Harvard MBA. That's nice on your resume. But at the end of the day, I want you to show me how I can improve my business, right? And I don't care about that. And on that project, that Harvard MBA didn't do a very good job. And he got beat up pretty good because he didn't do a good job. I, on the other hand, who had no experience, no MBA, I didn't go to Harvard. I presented really good ideas and I was totally green. I didn't know anything. And I came out with glowing marks because I presented good ideas. Nobody ever challenged my ideas on the basis that I don't have the experience and I don't have the credentials. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. And that Harvard MBA, turned out, I found out later, he was going through some really difficult personal things at the time, and that impacted his performance. So it was kind of an anomaly for him because he was a sharp guy. He was, I don't want to impugn him. He was really good. It was just he was going through a really difficult personal time, and that impacted his performance. So again, when someone brings up their years of experience or their credentials, that's how you know they're intellectually bankrupt. Okay. I always like to say, I make my money by being a little boy that points out that the emperor has no clothes. That's what I do. I might have experience, I might have credentials, and I might put them on a resume, but I'm not going to stand on them, right? I'm going to make actual good arguments, right? I have 23 years experience, 1998 to 2021, as a licensed life insurance salesman. It's interesting that he used the word salesman rather than, like, I don't know, professional.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, Peter, I thought we were talking about banking. Why would experience with life insurance have anything to do with banking?
Hmm.
Nelson
Interesting.
Nash, who discovered the infinite banking concept, he was a forester. He was not a life insurance agent. He came from outside the business. Okay. So once again, he's confusing life insurance with banking. But no, those are two different things, right? I don't, there are lots of people who have tons of experience with life insurance who know absolutely nothing about infinite banking. And if they're being honest, they'll tell you that that's not their area of expertise, right?
Yeah.
So, and my guess is also that he wasn't doing life insurance as his primary business. I mean, he's an accountant. I don't know what he's doing during that time. I'm speculating, but there are plenty of people who might have a life insurance license, but it's not their primary business, right?
Yeah. Because I wouldn't, because from our perspective, if we were if we were in his shoes writing this email, we probably wouldn't have used licensed in front of life insurance like that, right? That just doesn't. I agree with you. Probably he was licensed, probably, and then he, goes over here and says, I've also worked with 3 life insurance companies in my accounting career, consulting on whole life matters. So I think you're absolutely right. He was licensed, but he was not really ever producing or anything like that.
Yeah. So Peter's reading ahead. I have also worked with 3 life insurance companies. Again, like, what does that have to do with anything? I've worked with 3 life insurance companies.
I've worked with
Okay.
I work with six.
Congratulations.
I work with 16 right now. Do I get a special cookie?
Yeah, exactly. You get a
Yeah.
gold star. That makes you an
Yes.
expert on infinite banking, Peter. You're now an expert.
Woo!
I worked with 3 life insurance companies. Like, okay, like, what? Here, have a cookie. I don't see what that has to do with infinite banking. Once again, it's all just this faux professionalism. It's all bragging, right? This is how you know someone's intellectually insecure and they've got to brag about their years of experience and their credentials, right? If they knew anything, they wouldn't need to do that and they wouldn't be threatened by new ideas, right? One of the great things about consulting, which I did, is that you're an outsider. Being an outsider can be a huge advantage because oftentimes you see things from a different perspective and you see things that the client can't see, not because they're dumb, but because you're an outsider. You have a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
On whole life matters, okay? I don't know what that means, whole life matters. I am more of an expert than you think. So once again,
Well,
his goal is to show
Logan,
that
I think he
he's the
means by
expert.
on whole life matters. I think he didn't word that right, but I think he was referring to with whole life insurance. I'm guessing is what that
Yeah,
insinuates.
I am more of an expert than you think. So again, his goal is to show that he's the expert. It's not to
Okay.
find the truth.
So if
He's
you
not interested in finding the truth.
so if you're an expert, let's come to the public forum. We'll get a moderator. I mean, I won't moderate, but I know of I'll call out my buddy David Kinder. He's a great moderator. Or if this guy wants to pick a moderator, let him pick a moderator, right? Or we'll have 2 moderators. We could it's easy to put this together and I think a lot of people would enjoy it, right?
Yep. So again, his goal is to show that he's the expert. So he can pot. This is all posturing. Subchapter L of the code, and 23 years experience, and all that consulting with 3 different life insurance companies on whole life matter. Like, okay, nobody cares, right? Like, that's just you posturing. So you're this wonderful, amazing expert. Okay, then why are you not willing to discuss this in a public forum? And apparently, all this preparation and expertise only comes into play when someone challenges his article. None of it comes into play before he publishes the article, right? Oh boy. Okay. And yeah, life insurance and infinite banking, 2 different things. I don't see the relevance, right? There are lots of people with decades of years of life insurance experience. Guess who discovered the infinite banking concept? It wasn't a life insurance agent. It was Nelson Nash, who happened to be a forester, who came from the outside. That gave him a different perspective. So he saw something that those inside the industry did not see, right?
Yeah. And
And
it's
I'm kind of the same way. I wasn't born and bred as a life insurance agent. I discovered the infinite banking concept and became a believer, and then I got my life license because you need that in order to put these policies in force.
you mentioned a forester, and it's interesting because it makes so much sense that he had a forestry background,
Mhm.
because forestry and life insurance, I mean, gosh, we even represent the Catholic Order of Foresters, and people say, I once had a guy come up to me and say, yeah, I only have 5 acres of land. I don't know if you can help me. And I was like, God bless you. But I said, and I explained that, just as a forester takes care of, the forest and manage it properly, that's what we do at the Catholic Order of Foresters with your life insurance and protecting the family and making sure you're protected properly. So forestry and life insurance really do go hand in hand. I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was uh, kind of hit me when you mentioned it.
Yep. Okay, and then, I responded, and he didn't respond to my response. If I can, okay, it doesn't
So,
wanna scroll up.
you know,
Oh, I see, never mind, here we go. So I said, "Respectfully, I think you're engaging in a bit of projection when accusing me of being unprofessional and confrontational. If you want to see unprofessional and confrontational, perhaps you should reread your own article. I'm not surprised to learn that you have a lot of experience in the life insurance industry. However, as you know, that does not equate to a good understanding of infinite banking or even necessarily life insurance. If you don't want to discuss the article with me, might I suggest that you discuss it with some other names in the infinite banking community? I'd be happy to make introductions if it's just a problem with me. If you don't want to publicly discuss it at all with anyone, then again, I would say it's unprofessional to publish an article giving financial advice which people will take seriously and then not being willing to even engage with the other side of the story."
right.
And he hasn't responded to that. I don't expect that he will, but that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah. Once again, this is your typical, and I'm not putting him at the same level as these other guys, but Ken Fisher, Dave Ramsey, there's a whole list of them. By the way, I'm looking forward to it. There's a new book coming out in regards to financial gurus.
Mhm.
So that'll be an interesting read. But anyways, yeah, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to be one of these financial gurus, and where they can just say completely crazy, ridiculous stuff, and then they won't actually have a meaningful debate. They are literally the antithesis of Thomas Aquinas, and I just want to be clear on that. That's what you are when you do this. You are the complete opposite of one of the most brilliant men ever on this planet.
Right. And the fact that he glosses it over with this superficial sheen of professionalism is really insulting, right? The way that he'll bring up this technical jargon and his years of experience in order to obfuscate, right? What smart people do is they take apparently complex topics and they simplify them so that the intelligent layman can understand, right? People who are intellectually insecure, intellectually bankrupt, who are engaging in a bit of sophistry, what they do is the opposite. They try and obfuscate, right, to make you think it's too complicated for you to figure it out. So you better just leave it up to the experts, like this guy, right?
Yeah.
So So that's pretty much it. So yeah, not surprisingly, Mr. Wealthy Accountant is not interested in having any kind of a public debate or discussion, despite the fact that he has published an article on the subject directly attacking Chris Kirkpatrick and directly attacking infinite banking, but he doesn't want to talk about it. You know, it will require way too much preparation, but apparently writing the article required no preparation. None of that was required for him to actually write and publish a very damaging article, which will mislead people. It's only when the actual experts call him out on it that then all of a sudden all this preparation is required and his time is just way too valuable and he's way too important to respond to it. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. Um, maybe this will be the last episode. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there will be more to come. But
Yeah.
thanks so much for your time, Peter. Greatly appreciate it.
God bless. Godspeed.